reasons that we simply could not include in the report because it wouldn't be consistent with our ethic as scientists in this process. Okay. So this is the process we went through, but eventually we have to come back to the original question is, well, vulnerabilities are great, but really vulnerabilities can only be understood within the context of understanding what somebody's trying to accomplish. What is the attacker trying to do in an election system? Well, there's really 4 kinds of things that an attacker is going to do to an election system. First one's pretty easy. They're just going to try to change the outcome of the election. They're going to try to change vote tallies. But there are a lot of other dimensions, the more subtle attacks on election systems that we have to be acutely aware of. The second one is attacking voter choices. Now, one of the tenets of our democracy is when you vote, that vote is private. And after you vote, you should not be able to prove to a third party who you voted for. And the reason for that is you're trying to avoid coercion. Any election system that fails to provide for that voter privacy is thus failed in its duty to provide for a valid election. Now the third vulnerability, and this has actually come up, I think, has been the focus of a lot of analyses of recent elections, not just in the United States, not just in Ohio, but sort of nationwide and internationally, is vulnerable. Sometimes people want to prevent votes from being cast. I mean, there are simple ways that you can prevent votes from being cast by just providing equipment that doesn't work. For example, I mean, we've all experienced, we've gone to a voting precinct and there's been some piece of equipment that's broken, and so the line is out the door. There are more subtle ways to prevent votes from being cast. For example, if you're in a very busy precinct, and it takes essentially 2 minutes, we'll say, to vote, and there's 100 people constantly at the door. If you, as somebody who's trying to attack the system, just slow it down a little. Make that 2 minutes become 2 minutes and 15 seconds. That line goes from 100 people to 500 people very, very quickly. And the people at the end of the line who are there on their lunch hour and know that it's going to take 2.5 hours to get through the line are simply not going to be able to vote and therefore are disenfranchised. And finally, the last vulnerability we really have to be concerned about. Elections are one of these weird cases where perception is reality. Any of these attacks, we have to ask the question, well, who is the attack? Right? And so, remember, as I stated before, our job isn't to decide who individually the attackers are. We have to understand what the capabilities of people that are involved in the election are to affect these systems. Each person that's involved. What can the poll worker do to manipulate a system? What can a back-end election headquarters staff do to manipulate an election? Now, this is not intended to indict anybody. In fact, we've spent the last 3 days on the road all over Ohio meeting election officials and poll workers, and I have a newfound belief in the electoral system just from meeting the people that are involved. So this is not intended as an indictment. But when we perform this analysis, we have to assume everyone is an attacker. Because only then will we understand what the real frailties